We're all owned by the syndicate, body and soul. Or should I just say body?
Hello, filthy movie lovers, something weirdos, and anti-Criterion bros, to the second episode of The Short Ends, our series of bite-sized bonus episodes where we present the odds, ends, and ephemera that didn't exactly fit into our previous discussions. In this mini-sode, we have additional conversation from episode 11, Do It in the Dust, in which we discussed Ed Forsyth's nudie western, The Ramrodder. That film features numerous white characters playing varying degrees of Native American caricature, some noble, some savage, but definitely wearing garb that is surely not authentic, and in fact all belonging to a tribe that is not even named. The discussion that follows features Casey and myself awkwardly but earnestly trying to make sense of these filmmaking choices. Are they immoral? Are they cancel-worthy? Or are they simply the end result of cheap and lazy exploitation movie producers? Before we go, I was going to say going into these, like with even traditional Westerns, there is that element of like red face, with the Indians. Mm-hmm. Right. I think that's kind of a non-starter for a lot of people. I find it hard to get myself in that headspace, but I know that it is, especially the younger generation, they legit just won't watch it if it has that.
Right.
Do you have any opinions on that?
I do. I know a lot of people in film circles are kind of like, oh my God, everyone cancels old movies for everything. And it's like, well, I think there's a way to look back at these things and just be like, these were a product of their time. Like even like Girl from SIN, I don't think we touched on the fact that like Bob Moran is in yellowface for that movie. I think after a certain point, this is going to sound weird, I guess, but after a certain point, for example, like blackface, could not do blackface. But apparently it seemed in Hollywood that you could still do brownface. And you could still do yellowface. So there were certain levels of acceptability for white actors playing different races. And it's not restricted to sexploitation. It happened in Hollywood for a long time. I mean, Soul Man came out in 1985. And that was the butt of the joke, was C. Thomas Howell pretending to be black to get into college. But I think going into these films, I expect a level of bad taste to begin with, because you're dealing with a genre that is, I think the expectation immediately is that these films were made for like prurient tastes, and they were made to highlight naked women, and that's it. And that in itself is tasteless by the mores of then and some kind of now. So there's already a level of distastefulness to sexploitation that I think a lot of people have a hard time getting their head around, which I totally understand. I know people who still fast forward through sex scenes in these things. And I'm like, well, there's a lot you're missing out on. It's kind of like watching a musical and not watching the songs. Yeah, it's like if you're gonna put on a musical and fast forward through the songs, then what are you even watching? So I think in terms of like this film's brownface, or it happens in so many other ones too, but I think with a film like this, it kind of reminds me of like John Ford's like Cheyenne Autumn, or like a later John Ford film where he realizes where it's like half successful in the way that it's trying to portray Native Americans in a more favorable light than being like, well, these are these brutal savages that have to be controlled by white settlers and white colonialism. I don't think this film also doesn't really have a smart bone in its body to like give a shit about that kind of political, conversation.
Yeah, they have their own I guess they give them at least autonomy, and they are existing on their own. They're doing fine until in this movie. Ramrodder,
well, that's something that I also love about the movie at the beginning is when Jim Gentry comes and says, beautiful pipe dream, I wish that this actually fucking happened, which is that this land is yours. The U.S. government has given you this land. It is yours. You don't need to worry about the government taking it or anything like that. And I think that that's a really great way for the film to start in its conversation about Native Americans. It's kind of like, listen, we know that this is horrible and fucked up. So we're going to create this fantasy land of these Native Americans actually owning this land from the jump. I don't know if that was intentional on Ed Forsyth's part, but it's an interesting note for the film to begin on.
I bring you good news, Chief Minowa, from your white brother at the state capitol.
You are always welcome in our camp, even when you do not bring good news.
When I was in the state capitol, I spoke to the Indian agent. He told me that he has recommended to the government that the land on which you live and hunt be proclaimed a reservation. This means, Chief, that this land, which has always been yours, will now be yours in the eyes of the white man's law.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's a sex film that is making up like a tribal dance to show Kathy Williams naked, and creates a tribal lesbian initiation as like a punishment for someone losing their virginity. So it's like it's all totally nonsensical and made up. So I think if you go into it, it's just like a lot of these sexploitation films. For me, it's easier to go into it. It's like, well, a lot of these are sexual fantasies of guys who like served in World War II. They're incredibly outdated, and that's what makes them interesting, because you're seeing your window into what the hell people found sexy at that time, or what they thought people thought was sexy at that time. And if that means brownface, that's problematic as that is, it's definitely a product of of that time.
Like listening to you mention Bob Oran and the girl from Sin, like that. Yeah. I don't see it as malicious, so maybe that's why I don't get as offended by it. It's more just like, look, they were lazy. They didn't know anybody to hire, so they just hired their friends.
That's
and put
really
them
what
in,
it is.
Like yellow face. It's like, you know,
that's really what it is. It is pure laziness. Yeah, it really is. And that's kind of why, like, now people are more offended when they're not casting people of color in roles of color, or they're creating more diverse things, or casting trans people as trans characters, or gay people as gay characters. Because it's like the diversity is there. So at this point, you shouldn't be as lazy. You should have those that wider view and that wider scope. At that time, especially in this industry, that wasn't going to happen. It reminds me of. Do you ever see The Black Bunch, the Novak movie, the Helen Shennerup directed?
No, I haven't.
4 black women and I think 2 black men, and it's like they actually went out and cast a black cast for this film. It's still a scuzzy sexploitation movie, which I don't love, and it has very weird racial politics in it, but it shows that as we're moving into the 70s, we're going to start seeing more diversity eventually, whether it's coming from the right place or not. But it shows that like you don't have them getting a bunch of white people and putting them in blackface to play like African natives in this film, which you would have potentially seen, you know, a couple years earlier.
Well, a good reminder. Maybe we should cover something from blaxploitation, sexploitation era. You know, I was just looking at reading about Al Adamson's, that Black Samurai movie that he did. That's a mostly black cast.
I enjoy Black Samurai, yes.
Yeah. Something like that.
I think it really started around like 71, because that was Sweetback and Shaft, like those two, and then Superfly 72. I think blaxploitation, those black films made by black filmmakers that were made independently and then, picked up by studios in some cases, that really showed that not only was there an audience for these films, a black audience for these films specifically, but there were people who were actors, who were directors, who were crew members, who were black and trying to make films.
Right.
I think that trickled down into exploitation too, where it was like, okay. And that's why blaxploitation...
There is a talent pool here, yeah.
Yes, and that's why the phrase blaxploitation refers, I think, as a basic white dude, it refers specifically to the advertising of those films. They're exploiting the fact that these films are about black people and they're for black people. And so that's the exploitation angle of it. It's not exploiting these people by making films about them or casting them in films. Eventually it becomes much more exploitive when it's like all white people making these films to cash in on it. But initially, it's like you have Gordon Parks and Melvin Van Peebles and Verdi Ray Moore and D'Urville Martin making Ossie Davis making films for black audiences. Like what's the Ossie Davis movie? Cotton Comes to Harlem. Not really a blaxploitation movie, but it's labeled as a blaxploitation movie specifically because it was made by a black director for a black audience.
Yeah, I mean, that's always
yeah.
how I understood the term, but I guess there's people have misinterpreted it. Yeah.
Yeah, over time, I've heard different people discuss that, including some people who were in these films, because I think there were situations where they still felt exploited, which, you know, they weren't getting paid more necessarily. They weren't getting treated better, even though they were the stars of the films. But that's a whole other conversation.
Why are you doing this to me? What have I done?
You are paying for the crimes of your people, just as my people are paying for the crimes of our fathers, who sold our land and honor for a string of beads.
But why me?
Manoa says we must learn to live by the white man's law. Does not the white man's law say that you are to take an eye for an eye? Ha!
Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to touch on the Native American aspect here, because we kind of glossed over it, because sometimes it is easy because, you know, we watch so many quote-unquote like problematic sexploitation film. I should say sexploitation films with problematic elements that sometimes it's easy to forget that some of this stuff is worth like dissecting a little bit and trying to understand where they're coming from.
I think so. I mean, even if we're just like two white dudes with a podcast.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's a situation where I'm a progressive democratic socialist. I'm always trying to learn more and try to maintain, you know, that we need equality for all and everything. But I think it's a good conversation to have. I don't like it when like film bros will shut it down and be like, well, it was a product of its time. Like, we don't need to talk about it or whatever. And it's just like, well, we should talk about it. I don't know what the problem is talking about it. It's, you know, because then it is pretending that it isn't there. And that's worse because then it's kind of like, well, yeah, this didn't happen. You can't pretend it didn't happen. But yeah, like you said, it is just laziness. It's like they're trying to make a quick sexploitation movie to get butts and seats and look at naked ladies, essentially. So they're not going to put a casting call out for like an all Native American tribe, unfortunately.
No.
Or even go like the route that Hollywood did a lot of time, which was cast, you know, Latin actors, Latino actors, and Latina actresses in those roles because they photographed like Native Americans. Yeah, you don't get that here. In some cases, you don't even have them really trying to do brown face, really.
No,
Bobby
so again, it's like
is just wearing a wig and a headband. Like that's it. He is white as hell.
Kathy
Native
Williams,
American.
Yeah, Kathy's the only one that like appears to have like some extra bronzer on, but the rest of them are just they're just wearing the attire.
It looks like she just got a tan. That's it. She was at Rotzler's pool and laid out all day and got a tan and then went to the set. Yeah, it's just kind of like, it's the bare minimum.
So you could argue, I don't know if that's more or less offensive, I'm not sure, but it is.
I know. What it is. And I don't even know how much of this conversation you can even keep in the episode as we're trying to navigate these rocky waters.
Hey, no.
But I think it's worth talking about. You know, I think it's a good conversation to have. The topic of race in these films is not really discussed by a lot of people, and especially because I think a lot of the people that are researching these films and talking about them are white. There is not really, and I think adult films is the same way. I think it only started recently happening that we have a more diverse group of people talking about these films and writing about these films and researching them. But for a long time, it really was just us boring white guys talking about these movies. And, there's thankfully much more diversity in that field, too.
I keep trying to believe this is happening. First, I'm beaten and robbed and...
Robbed? This man robbed you?
Yes. He only got about $3, and I'm certain that he was disappointed. But he also took something that was great personal value to me.
What was that?
It was a necklace that was given to me by Chief Minowa. And on it was a golden medallion. I'm sure that's what caught his eye.
I've seen that necklace many times. Chief Minowa prized it very highly. He must have been very deeply moved to have given it to you.
It meant a great deal to me, and I'm very sorry
that I lost it.
Any last thoughts on Ramrodder before we shut it down?
No, I think the thing I like most about Ramrodder is that it's a very unassuming film, and it's not aiming that high, and yet it still has a kind of small, kind of epic scope about it. I think because it's shot mostly outdoors, and it's shot really well. But I think it's kind of nice to come across a film like this that isn't like an amazing, incredible masterpiece of a movie, but you at least get to see that, like, oh, like it's a nice, solid 4-star, like really well done film that shows what happens when you have like a lot of the right people coming together to make a specific kind of movie at a moment in time. And it's something that I wouldn't recommend to anyone starting in the genre, but I think once you've had some of these movies under your belt, then I think you can appreciate more like how professionally made it is, and just how well done it is.
Yeah, so, small epic is a good way to put it, I think. Yeah, it knows what it is. Yeah, and it's not a 2-hour slog. You know, you're never going to really be watching. You're looking at your watch too much when you're viewing the Ramrodder. And a lot of Westerns are that way, that they want to be, you know, especially in the 60s and 70s, a lot of the Westerns, you know, sexploitation or otherwise, they were like, what are we going to do with this genre? We got to make something big, and, you know, we got to make this 2.5 hours. Look at what Leone's doing with Once Upon a Time in the West.
Right. And it's just like, you can't do that. I think when you aim, I think the Ramrodder actually succeeds because it knows its limitations. Like, it knows that, like, the limitations in the acting and the costumes and the locations. It's like, well, we can still make a pretty solid little Western style sex movie, you know, with the people we have, with these nice locations, and with really talented crew members. So it really, it all really comes together really nicely. And I think it's a really nice surprise if you go in expecting it to be total trash, and it really isn't. And I think that's kind of all you can ask for with movies like this.
You truly bring good news, my friend. No longer will my people have to wander in search of food and water, for these mountains are rich in both. We are tired of our constant wanderings, and we are happy that they have come to an end.